All right, you're on.
You know, maybe
Yeah,
not.
if they join, Kay, can you let Susan know that they've joined? And I guess you'll see them because they'll be pinned.
I'll pin them as soon as I spot them.
You know what I mean? Oh, I should be.
Oh,
able to-
just go ahead and break in and tell us if they join, okay? Kay?
Will do.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right, I'm gonna hide the participant list here. Then Kay is going to pin the students and you go ahead and start recording whenever you're ready. We're ready here.
We're live, and I'll let you know if we get joined by the other two. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, everyone. I have the privilege of introducing my favorite panel discussion for SUNY Summit. I've introduced it the last couple of years, and I actually took a recording of one of the summits, and I use it in faculty training. It's, in my opinion, this is why we're all here, is to help students, and what better place to look to other than students to find out how best to work with them. So I don't want to take any time, and we all know I easily go over 3 minutes, so I will try not to. But here, let me just jump in here because I got the list. Actually, I have a handwritten list here that will work just as well. Of course, we have Susan Warner and Dr. Michele Forte over there. And she'll be our Phil Donahue for the day and run around with her microphone. Online, we have Kurt Mayer from Alfred, Stella Brower from GCC. We are hoping that we can connect with Jenna Miroy. I'm sorry, Jenna. From Nicaragua, from Niagara. Handwritten note, I'm sorry. Let's see, we have Catherine Austin from Plattsburgh, Rachel Mustachio from Broome, and we might have the privilege of speaking with Janardan. I'm not even going to try your last name. I practiced all these, but I was reading off type, not this. But anyway, Janardan is from Broome as well. And then Carrie Bogert is from UAlbany. So I want to hand the mic over right now and let's get this started because this is where the good stuff happens.
Thank you so much, John. And we are excited to have the students with us today. I had the opportunity to meet with them individually and they are fantastic. So let's get right to it. Welcome. Glad you're with us. Okay. So let's start with the question of what factors influenced your decision to pursue online learning? And just go right ahead, panelists, if you want to raise your hand, jump in. Otherwise, I'm going to call on you. Okay, Catherine.
Yeah, might as well get started. Good morning, everyone. So it's such an honor to be part of this panel today. And I just want to jump on that first question that was asked and said, as a returning student to school, just to give you a little brevity of my history, I am a grandmother. And I've been out of school since 1996. But I always wanted to pursue my bachelor's degree. And so I decided to jump back in. And of course, with my current schedule, I was looking for something that can offer me some sort of flexibility. So for me, the greatest factor was flexibility. And I did search in-person options and so forth amongst many schools that are well known here in the New York State. But when I started researching SUNY, I found that Plattsburgh had a beautiful online accounting program and one that would challenge me. And so I got involved, and I can honestly say, thank God I did, because I love the flexibility that it offers. That's my 2 points.
Thank you, Catherine. How about you, Kurt?
Great. Much like Catherine, I'm coming back to school. I've been out of the Marine Corps for a few years as a stable veteran, and I'm very active in my community. So flexibility of the program and the ability to get it asynchronous was a huge factor for me. So looking at that, the online learning environment set my curriculum perfectly for me within inside my lifestyle and the other organizations that I support. So really, those were the key factors in developing and looking at the program for online.
Fantastic. Thank you. Janardon, welcome to the panel. And we're just asking the question, what factors influenced your decision to pursue online learning? So, Carrie,
Yeah.
did you want to add anything?
My experience has been the same as Kurt and Catherine's. This is my second round of online learning through SUNY. I had gone back to school in 2013, but the demands of being a stay-at-home mom and working full-time made it so that I had to put it on the back burner. And in the fall of 2023, I found myself laid off from a great job. And as I tried to navigate the HR systems online, I couldn't say that I had a 4-year degree, and I think that really impacted me. So I decided it was time to finally finish. And I found UAlbany's 100% remote communications program, and it fits so well with what my career has been. And the fact that I get to do it while now having a full-time job again, and having that flexibility has been really great.
Thank you. Okay, Janardon, and then I'm going to go to Stella and then Rachel.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. So for me, the main thing was being able to like work while going to school. So I've been able to like, get rid of like my general education credits out of the way, and also be able to like save up money for a 4-year college.
Great. Thank you. Stella?
Hi. So interestingly enough, I ended up going back to school because I was lacking a 4-year degree. Granted, I'm going in for an associate's right now, but I have subsequently been let go from my job. So there's really a lot less pressure right now, or maybe it's more pressure, I don't know. But ultimately I was working full time, and I figured, let me do something that I like doing, that I have done already or was currently working in, as opposed to when I was a kid trying to find that, purpose or the major, or what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Well, I'm kind of on the back end of that now. So that's why I ended up doing 100% remote with GCC.
Thank you. Rachel?
Sorry, my internet connection is lagging a little bit. But hi, I'm Rachel. I'm 26. I originally went to school at the University of Buffalo, and I got my bachelor's in psychology. But in 2019, I developed a chronic illness. So going back to grad school and my career goals were kind of put on hold. So it wasn't until about 5 years later, I decided to go back to school so I could learn a skill that I could do at home. And SUNY Broome had an excellent online program for web design and management. And I knew that pursuing online learning would be best for my health, and it has been.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, moving right along. Regarding your experiences with your courses in Brightspace, what makes a course easily navigatable? What makes it easy to navigate? Yes, Carrie.
I have found I've taken about 20 courses online at this point through Blackboard and Brightspace. So the thing I have found to be the most helpful for me is consistency. Every class that I've gone into so far, the instructor has had their own individual approach, and it usually takes a few weeks to get established and in the groove and kind of know what to expect when you go into that instructor's classroom. And the predictability of that classroom is really helpful. So I find like when I go into one classroom and discussions aren't listed in the module, there you have to go to a separate area into the discussions area to find the discussion for that week. That's always challenging. Like that's very unusual. But once you get in the pattern, and you figure out they're always going to be in that one spot, and that's how that instructor likes it, it's good. When they throw like wrenches into the system, it's very disconcerting. And I know I'm always wondering, am I doing this right? Have I missed something? Do I got to go back now because, you know, they've changed their pattern and their style? So yeah, for me, it's consistency that is very, very helpful.
Thank you, Carrie. And Jenna, we're asking the question, what makes a course easy to navigate in Brightspace? So if you want to answer that, you can. I'll give you a second to kind of think about it. And Stella.
Jumping onto Carrie's comment on kind of, I want to know where everything is. I've gotten a couple of mixed bag experiences, and I have to say, content. Put your content in, because right now I've got a class that's doing 1 through 6, and we're just waiting with bated breath for the next back end of the class. It makes it just hard to feel confident that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I mean, up until week 5, I've been stumbling, and I hate it. I hate it. I feel like I'm missing things. I feel like I can't find something. And I'm constantly reaching out to my instructors or my professors, and I'm getting canned responses. Oh, well, it's in the syllabus. Oh, well, my policy is clearly written. Well, nothing is clear right now. So it's like, I'm like, okay, yeah. So that's one thing I will say is load it up properly. I know it's easier said than done because it's not always the professor, or it's not always, you know, the IT team, or it's not always this, but that's got to be smoothed out, in my opinion.
Thank you. Okay, Catherine, and then we'll go to Kurt.
Hi. Well, what I can say about Brightspace, I find it pretty easy to maneuver. With my type of studies, I prefer organization. So I like everything to be placed out where I can go in and I can check off, okay, this assignment is accomplished. This is what I have to do next. And that's what I found about Brightspace, because even for this semester, of course, when you first come in, you're trying to get your feet wet, and you're trying to, as I think Stella said, get into the groove of things. And I didn't realize that I missed some of my assignments because I wasn't paying attention to the work to do. And that's one thing I love. I just absolutely love about Brightspace. I think it's a beautiful system that we have to help us get through our studies. I love the organization. I love how it just puts everything out there for me. So that's just me. I don't have the experience that Stella had. I just have the ones where everything is laid up for me and I can just go in and find my assignment and complete it. What I don't like, and it's the question you didn't ask, is when professors take us then to external applications to use, because those now can get a little tricky. But Brightspace, I found Brightspace to be quite easy to navigate.
Thank you for that feedback. Kurt.
Yes, you know, I'm going to echo a little bit of what Stella said, as well as Catherine. I too enjoy the organizational structure of Brightspace. I do like the opportunity to go in every time I log in to see my grades, my assignments, my discussion posts. If I want to go right to them, I have that. It's easily accessible. So the organizational structure for it is important for me. We all have tight schedules, and you know, it makes it easy to go to. I don't have to 5 different clicks to get to a point that I need to look at. Now, when it comes to the course design and the laying out of the modulars, I do appreciate when they're all laid out, when I can see every single module that the course is coming. What I find frustrating sometimes is if we have 8 modules in the course and I can only see 5. I'd like to see them laid out in front of me as the the course is, as opposed to once you complete one, then another one opens at a specific day or time within inside the course. But that's just me, and that's a preference. Otherwise, you know, the Brightspace environment is very easily navigable.
Great. And Jenna, I'm glad you raised your hand because I saw you nodding a lot and I was going to call on you. So thank you for that. Jenna.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I mean, I think with a lot of things in Brightspace, and this is something I would like to bring up a lot, is it is almost entirely dependent on the professor to organize it in a way that makes sense for their class. I mean, the website itself has its it has its really useful features within the user interface, but I think the fact that there's such a broad spectrum of experience with it, and that I'm a tutor at the Academic Center of Excellence over at SUNY Niagara. I can have two students taking the exact same class with two different professors, and one can navigate their Brightspace page so easily and quickly, and they understand everything. And the other one, because that professor might not be so used to, you know, putting whatever they need on their Brightspace, it could be a challenge for that other student. I think that if there was some way to standardize it amongst all professors, if there was some sort of support specifically for professors that they could have to make sure that there's no student that encounters a professor that has a less than navigable Brightspace, I think that would be huge.
Great. Thank you very much. Carrie.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Jenna was saying because she's really touching on what I was trying to get at. What my experience has been in one class, like I have one instructor who releases a module every week, and that module is a checklist of links to other areas within Brightspace. And then I go to another class, and the module is actually the components, not a checklist linking out to other components. And then I have another instructor who doesn't give you the preview, as Kurt said, so you don't know what's coming the next week. You're going back to your syllabus every week to find out, what do I have to read for next week because the module isn't open yet. And it's that inconsistency where you feel like you're starting over every time you open the platform. The platform itself is very easy to navigate, like everyone has said. You know where your grades are, you know where discussions are. It's just the inconsistency instructor to instructor makes it very challenging at times.
Thank you all for that. Now, continuing on this topic or related, what elements of course design help you feel most engaged and included? Can you share an example of an online class activity or assignment that you found particularly impactful or engaging? Stella.
I absolutely loved my Business 101 course that I took in the summer. It was completely remote, but the video was posted early. It was a capstone project. So each week you had an assignment. The assignments were completed. There was really great feedback. Please note that feedback. And then at the end, it was just all of those weeks of assignments stuffed together. And that was kind of like our end final project paper. And I gotta tell you, it was really gratifying. You know, you sat there and you're like, yeah, I busted my butt all these weeks. And, you know, I learned a lot of things on top of learning a lot of skills. So in that one course during the summer, it really kind of set me up for other things that I might need to tackle, but definitely the capstone, the weekly check-ins with the assignments, the ability to talk to my instructors and not just get a flippant, you know, response of it's in the syllabus, was really helpful. I have to say, and honestly, it really didn't hinge on Brightspace. I think it hinged on format and the instructor.
Thank you, Stella. Rachel.
I took a database management course a couple semesters ago, and I really liked that the professor included a bunch of practice material stuff that wasn't graded, you could just do on your own, and then you could send to her and she could give you feedback on. So it just really made it easier to learn all the material, learn it on my own time. So then for the actual assignments and exams, it was a lot easier to do. So I really appreciated that.
Thank you, Rachel. Carrie.
One of my most favorite classes has been an interpersonal communications class where the instructor actually recorded her lectures of hers standing in front of a smart board and like using it as if I was in class with her. So it wasn't just a PowerPoint that she did a voiceover on that I had to sit and listen to. I got to see her and it felt like I was in a classroom. And I remember more from that class than any other class. Yeah.
Thank you. Catherine.
Well, Carrie, I wish I had that experience. That sounds awesome. And I say that because, when you're sitting in front of a computer and you're not interacting with others, it can get a little lonely. But I gotta say, I really enjoyed my business management class that I just recently took. And the reason why I say that is because our professor had us doing discussion boards, and where he gave us the area of discussion, and we had to literally interact with each other, student to students. We say our piece, and then one of our classmates will come and they will also discuss what we talked about, and it felt really good because I'm like, oh my goodness, this is something I was really missing, that interaction with others that are walking the same path you're walking, So I felt like discussion boards was a really good thing to get us interacting. You didn't feel like you're on this thing by yourself. You felt like there are others there with you. So that was something that I really enjoyed. A class that I didn't really want to take, but I actually enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Jenna.
So when it comes to things that are really engaging, it is really difficult being an online learner, like everyone said, because it's like you don't have the interactivity, so you don't have the excitement that comes with education. I think going back to, again, I would really love to see more support for the professors, because I think what a lot of professors wound up doing was during COVID, they created the hybrid model that made sure that whatever students were currently enrolled were still getting their learning experience. And then since then, I think what happened was the colleges kind of just pivoted to, well, we have all this stuff online anyway, we could offer these as online courses. The issue with that is I think a lot of professors haven't had the time to re-record their lectures since then. And they did it in a bunch of different ways, some more effective than others. To be a professor nowadays, it's like you have to not only be a teacher, but you also have to be a content creator and some sort of performance artist in order to keep these lectures somewhat engaging. Again, it's like a huge difference in experience. I've had professors that only post like articles and there's no recorded lecture. And then I've had professors do full recorded lectures with, and this was super helpful, a transcript that was searchable, that you could go back and search the script of the transcript of the lecture, which was huge. Again, if there was some sort of support for the professors who currently have to juggle in-person and online courses, some sort of effort to get to them, offer them the proper paid time to re-record their lectures, and to offer them guidance on how to edit and refine these lectures so that way they're up to the standard of what somebody who is paying for distance learning should be able to receive. I think that would be huge for being able to interact more and to be able to engage more with the online learning experience.
Wow. Well, we thank you so much, all of you, for your quality feedback. That was great. Anyone else want to jump in on this question? Okay. Moving along, moving to talking about communications. So obviously you're getting communications from instructors, advisors, maybe even for some of you success coaches. Question: what is the most effective method of communications for you? Nardin.
I would say the most effective would be like scheduling a Zoom call or Zoom meeting during office hours and just going over whatever questions you have, because like when you like dedicate that certain time, like you realize like other questions come up and like you get way more information than like from an email response.
Great, thank you. Jenna.
I love when professors have their office hours posted in an area that's not just the syllabus. I love when they have the ability to book like Zoom meetings with them. There's this service called Calendly that I think a lot of professors use here at SUNY Niagara. And I also love on the Brightspace specifically, there's usually the option to be able to have a discussion post that's just class questions. So when a student has a question about what's happening in the course, they can ask the discussion board and not just have to email the professor one-on-one, because more often than not, a lot of students have that same question. And it's just an open discussion post where all those questions are answered for literally everybody to be able to see. So the professor isn't constantly inundated with the same question over and over again.
Great, thank you. Rachel.
I agree with Jenna. I do really like having like a general discussion board to ask questions. Personally, I am very comfortable just emailing professors when I need help with things. And then communicating with other students. I really like the instant messaging capability on Brightspace, because if we're like starting a group project, or if I know somebody understands something in the course that I don't, being able to message them and talk to them directly as if we're texting has been really helpful.
Thank you, Rachel. Anyone else want to add their thoughts to this? Let me ask as a follow-up, when advisors or success coaches, support staff want to reach out to you, how would you prefer they communicate with you? Are you an email person? How do you feel about being texted? Yes, Kurt.
Well, I enjoy every mode of communication. So I've had different communication methods with my advisors. I've had it through text, I've had it through email, and we've scheduled some online conversations. So I'm open to all modes of communication, because with my scheduling, it's very difficult. Working full time and doing things extracurricular, it makes it easy to communicate and pass that information on without having to meet in the virtual environment via video conference. So at this point in time, even through Brightspace is a good form of communication. So for anybody who needs it, there's several forms of communication to get those messages out and to get questions answered.
Great, thank you. Stella.
Unpopular opinion. I absolutely loathe the discussion boards. I just had an incident where, we have discussions and we were actually graded on them. I know it's not anybody's, issue but mine, but I was on a cruise ship, which I messaged both my professors and said, hey, just FYI, I'm kind of gonna be out of pocket. I'll get your assignments done, but I got dinged for not participating in the discussion board when there was only one person who posted, and I responded. But because I didn't hit up 3 or 4 or 5 other students, or I didn't do something, it kind of went against me. It it feels cruddy. It feels bad, especially when I let them know way in advance when I started class and leading up to my traveling. It feels bad, you know. The other thing that I would say is I'm squeaky wheel. So no one's reaching out to me. I'm the one who's constantly so I'm hunting down, my advisor. I'm reaching out to my professors. I'm the one saying, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, hey, can I do this? Hey, what can I do for that? So I don't necessarily think that the communication's that accessible for me, since I'm the one who's constantly kind of initiating and trying to find my answers. Availability is a different story. I found everyone's pretty available and pretty open to my squeak, but yeah, generally speaking, that's kind of been my experience. So
Thank you, Stella. Jenna?
I absolutely have had students with very similar experiences to Stella, and that brings up something that I'd really like to address. I would love to see some form of protection for students and also for professors, but just from the student side of things for online learning, if we happen to encounter a professor that has the ability to take off points for things like discussion posts where it's exactly what Stella said. There are some circumstances where it's just not fitting that rubric. Um, there has to be a way to document in Brightspace these things that are happening, so that way the student has some form of protection against a professor that might simply just have it out for them. I mean, I don't want to, I love the professors at my school. However, we have to admit that there are some professors every once in a while that just are discriminatory or simply are so disengaged with their own job that they feel the need to go after certain students. And I've had quite a number of students that have been so frustrated with that, they've had to drop classes. There's no way to document that a professor is just like arbitrarily taking off points for things like that. I guess that's more of an issue internally with the school and the professor itself, but I think that's a huge concern for online students that just because there's such a gap in communication, that there's no ability to actually be able to report or to feel like there's any sort of accountability if there's a breakthrough in communication like that.
Thank you, Jenna. Carrie and then Stella.
Adding to what Jenna was saying, I had that situation come up, and I had an instructor who did her grading based on a point system, and my points earned, if we're going with maximum points is 100, I had a 96 average in her class. She asked me to use my assignments for examples for other students, but she still gave me an A minus because according to her point system, I didn't have enough points to earn an A, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. So, and this was in a SUNY learning class. There should be some kind of standardization to the grading and point system and percentiles and letter grades and things. It just seems rather odd that there isn't a standard.
Thank you, Carrie. Stella?
I was just gonna say I ended up getting an F for an assignment, and because I dropped the class and started her class late, so I was behind a week, but she gave me a grace period and everything was fine. I met every grace period. I have obviously emails to prove that I submitted everything within her time frame, and she graded late. So all of a sudden I get this F pop up on my Brightspace and or my my app, and I'm sitting there going, "What are you talking?" I'm like, "Me, I mean, listen, back in the 90s when I was going to college, F was like, okay, whatever. No, I'm paying for it now. I'm not gonna walk away with an F." So I messaged her kind of politely and was like, "Hey, professor, there's no feedback on my assignment, but I got an F." And you know, she was gracious enough to be like, "Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. You're right. I got that assignment." But it kind of points back to Jenna and what Carrie said is just, it's if you don't hit those little rubric points and it starts dragging you down while there's, and I'm not saying that it's always going to be, a situation that is crazy as, not being able to message anyone on a ship, but it's should be looked at overall, right? Am I a cruddy student in general, or am I just having momentary blip? Now, that's from the student perspective. Well, I got to tell you, speaking to Jenna's point, some of these professors don't give a hoot. They're adjunct professors. no disrespect to adjunct professors, I'm sorry to say it, but they're just there to collect a check. They're just there to show up and be like, here, I've got 30, 40 kids. And, you know, unfortunately, I am talking about, you know, Matt 091, but, that was, that's something that I'm got to tackle with. Like, I have to go around because
And
I've
as
already,
you're talking, Stella, I'm thinking this kind of ties back to what you all were talking about, how much you value feedback from
Yeah,
professors,
for
right?
sure.
So
for sure.
that's really the key, right? Okay. Jenna, did you want to add something more on this?
Really quick, I'm so sorry. It goes back to the professors in like they don't have enough resources to care. I want to say in most cases, hopefully. So it really does go back to if you're gonna have a professor that is both online and in person teaching, they need more support to be able to actually sit down. And a lot of these issues don't boil down to Brightspace. They boil down to SUNY doesn't support their instructors enough, and the online learning at large has a lot of really glaring issues that make it a really negative experience for professors and students.
Well, I do know, and I appreciate that feedback. I do know that SUNY is very committed to providing quality online education, and that for that reason we invite you, right? And we value your feedback. So thank you very much on that. Moving still in communication, I'm wondering, what do you wish your institution told you before you began your courses? Yes, Jenna.
I'm sorry, I'll try and be succinct moving forward, but I work in Academic Center of Excellence in SUNY Niagara. I believe a lot of the SUNY schools have academic centers of excellence embedded in them. Nobody is informed, no students were ever informed if they're just online learners that this is a resource they can use because we offer Zoom tutoring for basically every subject. And if we don't offer tutoring for that subject, you can request tutoring for that subject. And there's also Star NY, which is the online after hours tutoring. Um, I don't think I've encountered a single student that knew about either of these programs without somebody going up to them and literally saying it to their face. So I think both of those really, like, if there's a single page on Brightspace that needs to exist, it has to be the Star NY program for SUNY tutoring after hours and the SUNY colleges, SUNY universities own embedded tutoring for all online students. It's huge.
Yes, no, thank you. That's an excellent resource. Kurt.
First thing I want to do is say thank you to Jenna for telling me about Star NY. I was not aware of that program whatsoever. So thank you for that. The one thing that has created some challenges for me, and I wish I knew before starting any of the online courses, was the availability of resources per instructor. So each course has a requirement for different resources to use, whether it's books, online, electronic versions, or hardcover books, like in my diversity class. Knowing about that prior to the start of the course would have been helpful. So the communication ahead of time with the identification of those resources is good, because I started 2 classes 2 or 3 days into the course without knowing the resources that were needed, and then scrambling, trying to find them online or through Amazon became very difficult. And it put me back a couple of days on assignments.
Yes, Carrie.
I was going to comment about resources as well. One of the things I appreciate is when there is a preview week. When I was attending MCC, Monroe Community College, there was always a preview week. The course opens the week before the first day of school, so you can kind of find your way around. You can see the syllabus. You can look at what textbook you're going to need, any programs you need to download, things like that. At Albany, the course opens in Brightspace the day that classes start. And in some cases, I have found out after I have spent $100 on a book that I don't need the textbook for that class and I can't return it. So having that preview week to kind of get to know the class and what's going to happen in it and get your resources would be so helpful. I did not know when I started at UAlbany that preview weeks weren't standard across the schools.
Thank you, Carrie. Stella.
I would say timelines. get us timelines out, because so when I started looking at GCC, I kind of was behind the 8 ball a little bit. But then I noticed that it was kind of even the next semester where, like, your Ask Me Anything kind of uh things that pop up, like for the new students. It's starting after the school starts. So it's kind of like, well, I had all these questions before, and and Ask Me Anything would have been a great opportunity to kind of iron out those things. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, you kind of have to go get it. I don't know if there's any good way to say that, because the information's all there. I mean, and New York Star, by the way, is difficult. Just FYI, if you're trying to do it for math, oh, um, but I've always known about the tutoring. I've always known. Oh, Booksmart, Booksmart. Can we please get more information out on Booksmart, please? I I know it just kind of automatically happened, which is great, but there's some situations where I was just kind of like, well, where are my books? How do I find them? What if I don't need them? What do I do? So yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, Booksmart's fantastic. If anyone needs to do Booksmart, it's great.
Thank you. And Jenna, did you want to add something?
Yes, I'm so sorry. So when I did this panel at SUNY Niagara, I had a faculty member imply that students who are distance learners, if they didn't access the resources that they needed on campus at the library, that they were somehow lazy or not as good as students who were able to do so. And that's just simply not the point of online distance learning. I'm attending University of Massachusetts, so I don't have access to their campus, which that's all to say, if you have resources that are specifically just books in the campus library on hold at their reference section, they need to be online for the online distance learners. You can't sit there and blame online distance learners for not being able to access the same resources that people who just so happen to live closer to campus can access if you're offering a fully online program. That was just huge for me. I've had a student fail a course because either I think the professor couldn't offer the materials online to that student, or it was a case of that material was listed on the syllabus as a textbook that wasn't necessary. However, it was necessary for that course. It was just a matter of the weird way that they deem what's necessary and not necessary. And that goes into what a student's financial aid or grant can cover or not cover.
Thank you very much. Now comes the really fun part. We're going to transition and take questions from the in-person audience as well as the virtual audience. And Michele Forte is going to handle the questions first here in person, and then Anne, you can help us out with the virtual.
And I have a question. If no one has a question. Oh, there's a question. Of course, it's on the other side of the room. You know, I'm not jogging. Yeah, meet me halfway. That'll be the new game. Meet me halfway.
Hi, all. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeremy Howard. I'm an online academic advisor at Alfred State College. Also, hi, Kurt. He's my advisee. So I have a lot of information for you, and the school has a lot of information for you. How do I get it to you in a way that you will read it or hear it or somehow receive that information? Because that seems to be the biggest struggle, where we send out messages and make posts, and people still don't hear a lot of the stuff that we want you to know. So what's the solution?
Should one of us just jump in with an answer here?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Okay, so I'll take this one. One of the things I love that UAlbany did when I transferred in was actually have an information night that was virtual. So I was able to find out a lot of information. At first I was like, I don't know if I want to go to this. Is it really necessary? but I did find it very helpful when I went. There were lots of people who came in and offered information, and I thought that was a great way to learn more about what was coming.
I have a follow-up question. So at my institution, we offer that. Most online instructors offer virtual office hours at a variety of times and by appointment. In my particular class, students can email me, they can text me, they can call me, they can video chat. I mean, pretty much any channel of communication that I've been asked for, we offer. And students just don't take advantage of any of it. They don't come to that thing. I've got a Brightspace training that's out there for students. They don't take it, right? So how do you balance that?
Anyone want to answer?
So I really love and appreciate that I love and appreciate when professors post their office hours. I think what I would love to say to both of these questions is and this goes back to standardizing what Brightspace looks like throughout every single instructor, having a main page that is just resources posted nice, instructor office hours posted nice, because there's like an entry page when you click into the Brightspace into the course, there's like a little block of text that is like the first thing you see, and then from there there's the submenus you navigate to. If that first main page for every single course, every single professor is a list of those resources, if a student for some reason can't attend a virtual information night, just having it directly in front of them would be so great. I think that's my proposed solution to it. But again, it goes back to, I think instructors just need more support, more money, more time, more resources to have paid restructuring and designing time to fix what they would like on their Brightspace page. I don't think this is something that comes out of nothing. I think instructors need the paid time to be able to do that.
Yes. Yes, Jenna, thank you. I know there's lots of things available. 100%. I know there's office hours. I know there's Zoom hours. I know there's, message my instructor. I mean, I guess at GCC, we have an online kind of support group, which is fantastic. I think Flo is here, right? Yeah, Flo. Thank you, Flo. But I harass Loy all the time. I think if the Brightspace page for the course, if they were fleshed out more, it would be a lot more beneficial. Because obviously there's going to be general information and then there's going to be course specific information. There's lots of places for that there. Like, there's one professor that I'm with right now uses the to-do lists, which is phenomenal. Never seen it in the year and a half that I've been there. Announcements. Announcements have been a little sketchy, but this particular professor uses the announcements. I think that's kind of where it should lie. I mean, if it's a course specific information, it should lay inside the Brightspace for the course, with a couple of peppered, general things such as the tutoring and the, go talk to your counselor kind of, even if it's like, hey, I like doing those back to school nights when Loy has them. Our online group will do like an Ask Me Anything. I've gone to a couple of those. I've been a student, but it is kind of nice to just kind of jump in and see what questions there are. I mean, yeah, I'm 47. I don't really necessarily need to hang out on campus, but there were things that I didn't know, or there are things that I'm like, hey, why don't you just go and message so-and-so, or hey, call so-and-so. But again, I'm one that's quick to pick up the phone. I think hold on, I don't remember who it was that was talking that said that all these things are posted. I mean, you're talking to a bunch of introverts, like we're introverts by nature. That's why we're kind of geared towards the online learning. I mean, I could go to a school that's 20 minutes from my house. Instead, I'm signed on for a remote program that's 6 hours away. And again, to touch on what Jenna was saying, it's just building out your courses.
I appreciate that, Stella. Thank you. And I'll let Carrie add to this question, and then Kurt, if you have something quick, and then we want to make sure we can try to get in another question or two from the audience. Carrie.
I wanted to tell Anne that we were all talking earlier about these point systems and grading. Make watching all that stuff extra credit and give people a point or two for doing it. I think you'll get a lot more actually engaging with the content if they get some kind of reward out of it other than information. And even if it's just like 1 point, it's something that makes them want to go click that watch button.
I'm sorry, are you talking to Ann Miller?
Yes, the one who had asked the question about how we get people to actually engage with the content you're producing. Yeah,
I'm not talking about content in my courses. I was talking about a campus-wide, how to use Brightspace, how to use the services there, how to find help, like all of that stuff. And then I do give credit for an initial meeting with my students in my course. I listened really to all the things you folks are saying, and I have implemented literally every single one, and still don't get a response. It's so I just am trying to say that we're not ignoring you. We really want to be the kind of instructors and courses that you're asking for. So it also gets a little frustrating on our end when we think we're giving you what you've asked for, and yet we're still not getting.
I really appreciate your feedback though, Carrie, right? I mean,
yes, I absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to go now to the audience for another question.
Could I piggyback on Anne's statement there? And it is a question that I would open to both the student panelist and the designers and teachers in the room. And I think that's exactly what Anne was hinting at, is we want to be cognizant and address the student voices. However, there are what appear to be some disconnects. Like 2 or 3 of the panelists talked about courses where professors open up a module at a time or a week at a time. I know I've often stressed that there's an educational reason for that. I think a lot of professors are worried about having a 15-week course open online and a student that flies through it in a week or two without having time for reflecting and things like that. And so just that type of discussion, where is there common ground that can be reached from both sides?
All right. Are there any questions here in the room? Yes.
I'm curious, how many of you students, how many of your professors actually ask you to fill out a survey, ask for your input before the end of the course?
Jenna, would you like to add anything to this, and then Kurt?
There were like 3 questions within the span of when I originally raised my hand. I wanted to say, first of all, this is starting to sound like it's devolving into a us versus you issue as like student learners versus like professors, and that's absolutely not what we are proposing nor what should be happening with the dialogue. And I appreciate professors like you. We all appreciate professors like you, but it's simply the case that there are certain professors that just don't, whether or not they are just not familiar enough with technology to implement what you already have, or if maybe they're tenured and they've just fully checked out because they're overworked, or they simply don't want to be professors anymore. Overall, when it comes to accessing resources for distance students, we don't know what we don't know when it comes to where resources are found. I hear a lot of blame whenever these conversations come up, landing squarely on the students. What I would love for people to remember is that as a tutor, as the students I see more often than not, Most online students are full-time workers. Childcare is included in my definition of full-time work. If you're a stay-at-home parent who's a distance learner, incredibly challenging. So when it comes to having resources available, it's wonderful when they're directly in front of your face because students simply do not have the time to be hunting for resources that work for them. And things like Star and Y, they're great initiatives, but they're just one step into what should be because Star and Y has so many issues in and of itself. It only appeals to learners who learn in certain ways and not other learners. The user interface is outdated. It's hard to deal with. It's clunky. So I just would love to make sure that it's not a vitriol for professors. It's not any sort of like it's just frustration within there aren't enough resources, there isn't enough time. Um, that's just what I'd like to say about that.
Thank you, Jenna. And so we're winding down to the last few minutes, and we'd love to hear from Kurt and then Catherine.
Thank you. So I just want to touch on one thing when we talk about the resources and the modules and availability. There may be some instructional reasons behind that, but what I would like to see is the release of the materials pertaining to that specific module from a reading perspective. If there's work that needs to be done, I get it. You want to slow it down and make sure that we're absorbing and have reflective moments within inside that material, but giving us the opportunity to look at the reading materials and resources available for that next module is helpful. Specifically when we're navigating our calendars and our schedules, and that's why we do online learning. The second question I think I heard was course evaluations from online perspective. Every course that I've had, that survey has been released prior to the end of the course. So I do see them and I do populate them with any course critiques, but also anything that worked well for the course. I do provide that feedback to our professors.
Thank you, Kurt. Catherine.
Yeah, I'm going to speak from my experiences. Won't be long. And I just personally want to say, Plattsburgh, thank you. And the reason why I'm saying that is that from day one that I got on, my success coaches pretty much held my hand through this experience, which was new for me. We've been receiving quite a bit of resources. They send it out by emails. Oh my goodness, how can I put this quickly? There's an online club where the students can come together and we can talk about different things. What else is there? We've had our department chair brought in people, that have passed through, some alums that came back and told us how we can become accountants, because I'm in the accounting department. There's so many valuable resources that I receive, and I just want to say to Plattsburgh, thank you, because it's really helping me. Now, I understand as a student, I have to be responsible, point blank. If I want to succeed, there's things that I have to do. Of course, nothing is perfect. And with that being said, I know I've had met some instructors that weren't really working with me. And guess what? I found another way to work it out. So you just got to be responsible. And for professors, because I don't want to feel like we're fighting with one another, for professors that might be struggling with students that are not stepping up, at the end of the day, we are all adults. And if we want to succeed, guess what? We're going to buckle up and succeed. That's how I look at it. Let me just say this and I'm done. To answer the last question that was asked, yes, we do get those surveys towards the end of the program, and I have participated. I don't know how many people have, but I have participated. And for anyone out there, students that are listening, take part. Let your voice be heard. I'm done.
Yay. I cannot think of a better way to wrap that up. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Thank you. And I just want to ask the panelists, please hang on for just one moment. We want to get a screenshot of you all. But thank you, everyone, for attending. And again, thank you, panelists.
helps if I actually have a mic here. So do we have all the panelists? Do you have your cameras on? And then actually, a couple of you have it kind of tilted down a little bit, so or tilted up rather. If you kind of